Have you ever found yourself angrily tossing things around and cleaning with no real plan, fueled by frustration and anger? Well, you're not alone. This is called rage cleaning, and it's the next stop in the clutter cycle. Welcome back to Break the Clutter Cycle, a limited time podcast and a candid conversation about why the clutter keeps coming back no matter how much you clean, organize, or tidy. My name is Nicole from the Maximizing Mama, and this podcast has been so exciting for me to put together because it's something that many people find themselves stuck in, is this repetitive loop of cleaning, tidying, decluttering, and organizing over and over and over again, only for the clutter and the messes to keep coming back. It's often fueled by deeper emotional triggers that we're not even aware of, and it causes a lot of frustration, and it can go on for years if you're not able to break out of the clutter cycle. So, over the last few episodes, we have been diving into each phase. If you're new here, you'll definitely want to go check out the very first episode where we dive into what the clutter cycle is. From there, we have phase 1, which is the overwhelm phase. This is when you first realize that you have too much stuff in your home and that you need to do something about it, and you feel super overwhelmed by all of it. Now, the overwhelm phase could last for years. You could be overwhelmed for 10 plus years, or it could be for 10 days. It's going to be different for everyone depending on your specific circumstances and your unique household. But once you break out of that first phase and you move past the overwhelm, you typically end up getting organized as a quick fix, which brings us to phase number 2. This is when you're following what professional organizers say to do. You're buying, the home edit bins from Target. You're containing your things in bins and baskets, and you're trying to make your house look more organized in order to deal with all that clutter. But as I said, it's a quick fix. It doesn't last, because as long as you have clutter in your home, that is a sign that you have more stuff than will reasonably fit in your house. And that means that the solution is to let go. And in that episode 3, where we dive into the organizing trap, I break down why organizing your stuff is never going to last, why the clutter is going to keep coming back. So that actually brings us to phase number 3 of the clutter cycle, which is when the clutter comes back. So to reiterate, what's happened is you have become overwhelmed with clutter. You were trying to figure out where to start. Eventually, you ended up getting organized as a quick fix. But then the clutter just came back because you didn't let go of enough stuff. And that brings us to phase number 4, the rage cleaning phase, which is exactly what we're diving into today. Now, one thing I want to point out very quickly is that the clutter cycle for you, it could happen in this specific order, but you also might jump around. So to give you an example, you might have first been overwhelmed with clutter. You might have got organized and then the clutter came back, but maybe you tried to get organized again. Maybe you did some true decluttering and then you ended up feeling overwhelmed for a second time, and then you moved on to rage cleaning. There could be any number of scenarios and circumstances that happen for you and your household, but as a general guideline and a general rule of thumb, these different phases, you should be able to resonate with all of them at one point or another. I can almost guarantee that if you're listening to this podcast, you have participated in some type of rage cleaning phase at one point or another in your life. So to be clear, rage cleaning is the act of angrily cleaning or decluttering with the sole purpose of releasing pent-up emotions. It's almost always frantic, impulsive, and it usually has no specific plan or goal. And that means that there are emotions driving this behavior. So basically, something has triggered an emotional response in you, and that led to the rage cleaning. And that is what I want to talk about for a bit, because as long as these emotional triggers are there, as long as you're not moving past them, then unfortunately you will stay stuck in the clutter cycle. So One of these emotional triggers could be the feeling of defeat. If you're feeling defeated because the clutter keeps coming back, no matter how many solutions you've tried, that defeat will lead to frustration, and the pent-up anger it'll kind of come to the surface. Like all that anger that you might be stuffing down, it might come to the surface because it seems like you're out of options and you're not sure what else to do. Or maybe you're super irritated with your family members, like your spouse or your kids. And I will say it's easy to blame things on them and say that, our kids leave stuff everywhere and your husband never picks up his things. And while that may be true, it's important to remember that our kids, our spouses, and our families, they're following lifelong habits that are not going to be broken overnight. So even if they are making a mess, or even if they are contributing to all that clutter and all that chaos, well, getting frustrated or irritated with them will never solve the problem. Another emotional trigger is if you have emotional exhaustion. If you've ever felt emotionally drained, rage cleaning can help you feel accomplished and productive. So even though deep down your actions are driven by frustration, it feels like you're making a difference in your home. And that actually could give a temporary false sense of control, because it doesn't, the rage cleaning doesn't create a real long-term change. So then when the clutter comes back again for the second and third time, you start to think it's your fault, which we're actually going to talk about in a future episode. Now, when it comes to these emotional triggers, you could also feel guilty or shameful for letting things get out of hand. And you feel ashamed that your house is a total disaster, which then fuels an intense desire to clean it all up. So those are the emotional triggers that could be driving this behavior and causing you to feel frustrated and angry, and then you end up rage cleaning as a way to release all of it. So I want you to think about rage cleaning from a psychological perspective. It's giving you an emotional release where you're literally releasing pent up anger, the same exact way that you might vent to your friends, or you might do some kickboxing, or even maybe punch a pillow when you're stressed, or go out and, scream at the top of your lungs in your car. Because emotions are just energy in motion. That is what emotion means. And this is something that when I learned this about a year ago, it blew my mind. We tend to think that emotions are like a thought that we have in our brains. No, it's actually a real feeling that we have in our body. It's an energy that is forming in our body. And so this anger, when we feel it in our bodies, we need to get it out in one way or another. And as a side note, I learned about this because I have always struggled with anger. I will say personally that I don't typically do any rage cleaning, but that's because I release my anger in other ways. That's actually how I realized that this rage cleaning is very similar to, going out there and yelling in your car, because it's this energy that you have in your body that you need to release. So whether you're irritated with your family members, or you're emotionally exhausted, or you're just defeated and frustrated because all this stuff is just piling up in your house, there's some kind of emotional trigger that's leading to this frustration and this anger, and you need to release it in one way or another. And if you're not able to, then it will naturally come out as rage cleaning. Now, here's the thing. Rage cleaning can have a negative impact on your relationships and your mental health because it creates more stress. And when you're angry, you might be yelling or snapping at your kids or pointing out everyone's faults and maybe even talking down to yourself. And I hope you're starting to see here that all of this just feeds the clutter cycle. It's just starting it all back over again. So when you're snapping at your kids and blaming everyone for the mess around your house, or when you're angry and beating yourself up, eventually you will crash back down, and that pent up frustration will turn into indifference and detachment. So then you end up avoiding the clutter all over again. But I'm actually kind of getting ahead of myself here because we're going to talk more about that in our next episode when we dive into the clutter coming back for the 3rd, 4th, and 10th time. So what you need to know right now is that rage cleaning is the act of angrily cleaning or decluttering because there are emotions driving this behavior. And you can think of it the same way that you need to release, typical anger or frustration that you might feel. But if you're actively engaging in rage cleaning or staying angry and frustrated at your family members or even yourself, it could just feed the clutter cycle all over again. And the hard truth that I really want to get across to you in today's episode is that rage cleaning, it doesn't last. Now, it does work in the short term. It does solve the problem. It does help you to get a clean house right away. It does help you to let go of a few things and get things in order. But when you're rage cleaning, you're focused on the visible messes, the things that you can see with your naked eye. And you're not getting to the root cause of the clutter. You're not getting to the true clutter that's piled up and hidden away behind closed doors. So even if you end up letting go of a lot of pants that you haven't fit into in the last 5 years, you likely didn't get rid of enough. And what I've seen most often with my clients is when someone's rage cleaning, they're quickly trying to get things in order. So there's not a lot of intentionality behind what you're doing. And if you have been in the Maximizing Mama community for a while, then you know that I teach decluttering and organizing with intention and strategy, because that is how you can break out of this clutter cycle for good. When you know where to put the homeless items, when you know exactly how to tackle the true clutter behind closed doors, and when you're intentional with all 6 types of clutter, then you can finally put a stop to the never-ending mess. But on the other hand, when you're rage cleaning, then you're just focused on the material items. You're just focused on the physical clutter, and you're completely avoiding the habits and the routines that might be causing the clutter to accumulate in the first place. So the clutter is just going to come back, because you can think of rage cleaning the same as basic tidying and cleaning. It's the same thing. There's just rage and frustration put behind it. If you go and you tidy up your living room, it's not going to stay tidy as long as you have too much clutter. It's not going to stay tidy and organized as long as your habits and routines are causing the clutter to just come back all over again. So today, for this episode, I want to help you recognize when you're about to start rage cleaning, so that way you can declutter with intention. The most important thing here is awareness. And for this, to help you develop better awareness, I recommend what's called a frustration scale. So whenever you start to feel annoyed, anxious, stressed, or angry, take a step back, take a pause, take a deep breath, and then rate your frustration on a scale of 1 to 10. If you rate it above maybe a 6 or so, that could be a pretty good sign that you are leaning into the rage cleaning phase. So then from there, you can shift to mindful decluttering, where you create a plan to declutter with intention. This plan could be to choose one area, depending on your specific household. You could set a timer for 15 minutes, and then you could sort items intentionally rather than tossing things out in frustration. Now, by the way, I want to mention very quickly that I have a course that's actually called Mindful Decluttering that helps you get a clutter-free home using your mindset and mindfulness tools. And it will be included as a bonus for your clutter-free era that is coming at the end of November. So make sure that you're staying tuned, because mindful decluttering, if you love mindset and nervous system work and mindfulness, then you're going to love mindful decluttering, and you're going to love your clutter-free era. Now, with that said, let's go over some practical tips to help you declutter mindfully and productively. First and foremost, the daily reset. This is my number one tool that I will use for the rest of my life. It has been my saving grace as a mom of 4 with swollen legs, a part-time job, and a full-time business. So the daily reset, here's what it is. Morning and night, spend 15 minutes putting away all the everyday messes. You're putting away everything that already has a dedicated home. It just needs to be put back where it belongs. And that's it. That's the daily reset. It's super quick, it's super easy, and it will help you release some of that frustration because you'll be getting a quick win. The second tip I want to share with you is to always follow the one space at a time rule. The worst thing you can do is to start cleaning, organizing, or decluttering and trying to tackle a whole bunch of areas all at once, because before you know it, you've pulled everything out of multiple pieces of furniture. It's all in huge piles on the floor, and you have an even bigger mess than you started with. Instead, focus on one space at a time. And to give you a tip straight from my courses, one space at a time could be one area with true clutter, or it could be one pile of homeless items. So true clutter spaces are anywhere that has too much stuff piled up behind closed doors and taking up all of your storage spaces, like your bathroom cabinets, your bedroom closet, or a junk drawer. These true clutter spaces are going to have a lot of things in there that you're not really sure what it all consists of, and a lot of it you don't really necessarily need anymore. There will definitely be things that you want to keep, but many of it will be things that is just taking up space. And for piles of homeless items, these are the piles of things that you need to find a home for. You need to find somewhere to put them. But if you cannot find somewhere to put these homeless items, that is an excellent indicator that you need to focus on the true clutter spaces, because the true clutter spaces are what's taking up all of your storage area. As long as you have too much stuff in your closets, your cabinets, and your drawers, you won't have any room for the items that you're using daily, and that's exactly why they become homeless items. So that is a tip straight from my courses that we're going to be diving into more inside of the upcoming program, Your Clutter-Free Era. This tip for now is to follow the one space at a time rule. It doesn't matter if you tackle a true clutter space or if you tackle a pile of homeless items. Narrow it down to one space at a time. Start and finish that one space before you move on to the next. That will help you avoid rage cleaning and making an even bigger mess than you started with. And finally, as the third tip to declutter mindfully and productively, I want you to celebrate small wins and practice a gratitude check, where you acknowledge the progress that you have made, no matter how small it is. Where you have gratitude knowing that it's only going to get better, and gratitude knowing that you now have the tools and the resources within this podcast and within this community to help you finally get a tidy, organized home. Because practicing gratitude and celebrating your small wins have been scientifically proven to reduce stress and frustration. But most importantly, remember that breaking the clutter cycle is a journey. The clutter did not happen overnight. You didn't get into this cycle overnight, and you won't break out of it overnight either. But the good news is that it doesn't require perfectionism or even minimalism. The goal is for you to have a functional home that you enjoy, that is easy to clean and tidy. And we're going to get there. But rage cleaning will never help you make that a reality. So phase 4 of the clutter cycle is all about rage cleaning. When you've done this in your home, when you have practiced a rage cleaning session, you might feel pretty good. You might feel productive. You might feel like, you've got this under control, and you definitely feel better emotionally because you've released all that anger and all that frustration, and you might have a tidy, clean home to show for it. But it won't last long, because as long as there is still true clutter, piled up behind closed doors, as long as there are still homeless items that don't have a permanent dedicated home, as long as your habits and your routines are causing the messes to get left out all over again, then the clutter will come back, your house will get messy, and you will feel more frustrated and irritated than ever before. And that brings us to phase number 5. When the clutter comes back again. Now, this could be the second time that your house has got cluttered all over again, or it could be the 10th or the 20th or the 30th time. This could be any point for you. Remember that it doesn't necessarily have to fall in this specific sequential order, but I can guarantee that you will resonate with the emotions and the mental aspect of having your house get cluttered again and again and again. And that is exactly what we're diving into in the very next episode of the Break the Clutter Cycle podcast. So thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to share this limited time podcast series with you, because this is a cycle that many women find themselves stuck in, and we're going to help you break out of it. We're going to help you put an end to these repeated patterns and these emotional triggers that are causing the clutter to keep coming back. Now, speaking of, we have a brand new masterclass that I'm going to be announcing publicly very soon. That's called the Roadmap to a Clutter-Free Life. And it will give you the step-by-step details to help you get all of this in order. So that way you can have routines and habits to keep the clutter from coming back. And you will walk away with true clutter freedom. So, like I said, I have not announced this masterclass publicly yet, but I would love to see you there. You can check out the link in the show notes to save your seat, and I will see you there. Now, our next episode, when the clutter comes back all over again, that will be released next week, the first week of November, election week. So make sure that you're subscribed to the Break the Clutter Cycle podcast, and go ahead and leave a rating and a review on either Spotify or Apple, because that will tell me if this is resonating with you. So make sure that you're subscribed to the Break the Clutter Cycle podcast. Leave a rating and a review so I can know if this is resonating with you. And go save your seat for the Roadmap to a Clutter-Free Life Masterclass through the link in the show notes. That's all for today, my friend. I hope you have a wonderful Halloween. I hope you have a beautiful weekend. And I hope you get out there and vote. I will talk to you soon. Bye.